Last fall, DePaul University hosted the first ever symposium on balancing market and mission in enrollment management strategies in Catholic higher education. There's a piece a number of years ago in Atlantic called The Best Class Money Can Buy, and I thought the subtitle was very interesting in and of itself. It was The Rise of the Enrollment Manager and the Cutthroat Quest for Competitive Advantage. And Matthew Quirk, who's the young man who wrote this, in general, he says enrollment management as a practice in higher education has in some cases transformed the entire mission of colleges and universities by borrowing many sophisticated techniques of business strategy and marketing strategy, and have, in his words, installed market-driven competition at the heart of the university. And in his piece, he begins to set in place this tension between market realities and missions of institutions, and in very real ways recognizes that the enrollment management function in American higher education is one that has to balance that. And we do it either for good or for evil in our practice. Depends on the mission of our institutions and the level of support we have for certain kind of goals. But that's the tension, and that's these trade-offs that are being much talked about in our professional field. Like it or not, there's extraordinary pressures on colleges and universities to try to move up on the academic profile and to increase institutional assets, because that's the corner where you want to be, rich with really bright students. What are the pressures? Who tends to be arguing that we ought to be doing all that we possibly can to enroll very high ability students and able to pay and be successful? Faculty? Board members, depends on your board, depends on your faculty. There's a lot of pressure saying, it'd be nice to be able to enroll more students that are of higher ability students. I've never met a faculty that wouldn't prefer to teach the student body that went elsewhere. They're always saying, why can't we teach the ones that we didn't yield? They went there. Well, yeah, exactly. All right. What are the financial pressures? You got pay raises, beautiful facilities, and if in fact we generate more net revenue per student from these students than down here, we need to have our fair share of these students, if for no other reason than to generate the revenue that we're going to put right back into the financial aid budget to help these students down here. What kind of pressures move us to focus down here on the lower right? Very high ability students representing some of the neediest segments of the college-bound population. You have institutional mission that tugs you here. And hopefully you've got a mission that calls you to provide opportunities for students who are academically very talented, and the only thing that's standing in their way are their financial resources. And then what are the forces that are working in this direction? Less affluent students, they're facing greater and greater academic challenges, lower and lower levels of academic preparedness coming out of high school. When we look at who's graduating from America's high schools, this is where the growth is. Less affluent populations with a level of academic preparation coming out of our secondary schools in general that aren't helping prepare students to be academically ready for college. That's the mix that we're trying to juggle. A profit margin, if you will, academic merit, a mission that calls us this way, and market dynamics that are pulling us that way. And who sits at the middle here of trying to balance all of those competing demands? It's that enrollment management person that was vilified about bringing market realities to bear to institutions that really ought to be driven solely by mission. You can't afford to be driven solely by mission. Most of us are still tuition-dependent institutions that you have to be able to manage this entirety in a balancing act, and we sit in the middle trying to say, how do you manage all of this? And the analytic sophistication, I would argue, that the enrollment management perspective has brought to institutions that enables us to kind of call the bluff of board members and faculty and others for whom mission is just rhetoric. And we say, well, are you prepared to put the money behind it? Are you prepared to recognize that this is the trade-off that we deal with? That while we try to make good on mission, we're going to have to sacrifice something in margin. Or as we try to elevate the academic profile of our student population, we may be working against mission realities. And through the analytic sophistication, which most see as somehow has eroded kind of the integrity of the process, it's the only way by which we can achieve integrity in the process. Because we bring the metrics and we bring the empirical analysis to these trade-offs in ways that don't allow our presidents and our boards and our faculty to get off the hook of just saying, well, I don't care how you do it, just raise the academic profile. Oh, well, really? And we lost minority students by doing that? Or we're losing net revenue? Or I can't get my microscopes now because you spent this much in financial aid? Right? So that's the challenge. All colleges and universities approach this challenge of balancing market dynamics with aspirations for realizing a number of goals, including mission-based goals. How each institution manages its financial aid strategy to realize a broad array of outcomes that, again, don't just sit side by side. They work in fundamental conflict with each other. This is a tug of war, competing goals and objectives working against each other, needing to be balanced in an enrollment strategy that's determined in a large part by where you sit in the overall marketplace. So My point to you is this: an enrollment management perspective, again, it's not inherently an evil thing, and perhaps it's the only way that institutions can begin to appreciate the tension that exists in our business, in the marketplace, and within an institution. And Buckminster Fuller, the creator of the geodesic dome and other kind of really interesting architectural structures, like to say that tension is the great integrity. So too in enrollment management, particularly in Catholic higher education, it's the tensions that exist between and among these competing demands that bring energy to our work and that animate our professional obligations to bring our mission to life. Thanks for the opportunity to spend a little time with you this afternoon. I appreciate your attention. Good.